All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very, very special episode of Submission Radio Live, as I F it up already, and it's a part of the tradition. I have two very special men with me. The last time I saw this man that I'm about to introduce, he was singing karaoke at a dive bar. I think it might have been in New York, but he was singing Backstreet Boys like a beautiful angel. And ever since then, he's been singing silky smooth music on MMA fighting, crushing it with live watch-alongs, killing it with BTLs, and more. Of course, the interviews and all his amazing coverage. The one and only Mike Heck making his first appearance on Submission Radio. We made sure it's a special one. Mike Heck, welcome to the program.
I mean, it only took 4 years, maybe actually longer than that. It only took like 6 years since that wonderful karaoke night in New York City to finally join Submission Radio. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
It was a great performance, man. It just stuck with me for a while. So it's only now just sunk in. Now, the next man decided to come back on the show. I don't know why. I don't know how I got so lucky, but he is one of the premier writers in MMA media and personalities in the sport. He's seen it all. He's been there for all the biggest moments. And now he dusts off his hat to join us, preview potentially the biggest card of the year, the great one. They call him the man in the hat. I call him the MMA Dark Knight, Chuck Mindenhall. Thanks for jumping off your perch and joining us here on Submission Radio.
I love it, boys. It sounds like I missed one hell of a karaoke party, man. I feel a little left out over here. You know what I'm saying?
Do you remember that, Mike? You crushed
I
it.
do. I do. I remember rapping Forgot About Dre with your former co-host, Casper. It was amazing.
Yes.
Wow.
He jumped in and filled the Eminem role admirably, I might add. And yeah, that was a hell of a night.
So I forgot about Dre. That was kind of like Casper's go-to song when we used to do the karaoke stuff. And he crushes it. Like the guy hits the song, all the words. And there was one point where some of the boys decided to move on, Chuck, but Mike was still performing. And I stuck around and I watched him sink. I didn't want the man, to sing by himself to anybody in the crowd.
Can I ask, was alcohol involved in this, Mike, or was this a completely sober enterprise you were dealing with here?
Let me just say this, whether it would have been either way, I'll just put it that way. So we'll let the imaginations of the people run wild. Oh yeah, dude. I don't need it.
You don't need it.
It was easier to have it on hand that night, but yeah, I don't need it.
See, I'm always one of those guys, if the karaoke thing is going on, you're like, nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it tonight. By like the fifth beer, you're like, bringing up cards to the DJ or whatever the guy's saying, like, hey man, can I do this one? Can I do a slipping of money? It's like, you want to get up on stage at that point,
I sang Pearl Jam Alive with like 4 people left in the place. I didn't care. I was just like, all right, let's go. Let's do one more.
That's passion.
Let's do one more. Yeah. One more.
I was one of those 4 people. I think
you know,
those people were very passionate about you, Mike, and I'm excited to have you back on the program. There's also
if I was up there, man, you would have been 2 of those people. You know what I'm saying? Because that's how drunk I would have been.
By the way, there's another dive bar in Vegas where we would usually go, and we created a band called the Back Fist Boys. You weren't there for that one, Mike, but I think it was me, Lynch, Oscar Willis, Casper, maybe Jim Edwards, and a couple other guys. And there was some crazy stuff. We'd be pulling people up on stage, slipping money to people, doing all sorts of weird stuff. And anyway, good times. All right, guys. So UFC. Wow, look at that. Someone even paid for a question. This is going better than I thought. All right, UFC 314 special, guys. One of the biggest cards of the year. And I got to quickly get into the fact that from my perspective and some of the friends that I've spoken to, they've called me. They've been like, we've been talking about it behind the scenes, like what is happening with the sport of MMA. This is just from the perspective of like people haven't been that keen to watch stuff. People haven't really watched cards. I have friends that had no idea the fights were even happening. We always thought that things were going to go downhill. But when UFC London was happening, even though the main event kind of got changed, I thought that was going to kind of be interesting to people. That wasn't, even though there were some cool fights on there, people just didn't really seem to want to tune into coverage. People didn't really care that much about fighter interviews. Then we had Mexico, which actually was a really fun card. And Mike, you guys did such a good job of covering it. I saw you guys had some really good people really engaged with your post-fight show. But outside of that, I just noticed it was still a big lull. And now we come here. And obviously last weekend, one of the worst cards in the Apex of all time was like the worst time this could happen. But now we go to UFC 314. So I'll go to you first, Mike. Do you think this card is strong enough to bring back the excitement and the engagement for the more casual fans to get back into the product like they were before Alex Pereira lost to Ankalaev at UFC 313?
Maybe. And this is not going to translate to business in any way for the UFC, because the people who like haven't been paying attention to the UFC but are going to watch UFC 314 are going to watch for 2 fights. And spoiler alert, it's not Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. They're coming to watch Paddy Pimblett fight Michael Chandler, and they're coming to watch Bryce Mitchell fight Gian Silva. That's it. And neither one of those individuals or people are going to spend a dime buying the pay-per-view. They're going to cheat. They're going to find an illegal stream, and they will watch in that sense of actually watching the card. So it's not going to translate to any sort of business for the UFC. Obviously, they'll do a tremendous gate. Pay-per-view buys don't really matter for the UFC now anyways. But in general interest, it's going to be on those 2 fights. We've seen it all week. And here's the more interesting thing that I've realized about where we're at in the sport, okay? Mm-hmm. We talk about how bad UFC Vegas 105 was. And I said, you can make, I don't know if this is true. I didn't like deeply dive into this, but you can make a strong argument just off the top of your head that UFC Vegas 105 was one of the 10 worst cards in UFC history. On paper and in execution, it was just a slog from start to finish. Now, it wasn't all bad. There was Chang Ho Lee was like the MVP of the card. There were some decent finishes, squash matches, which we love to see. But everything else was just slow and boring. And when you say things like that and you try to be honest, everyone's like, oh, you're so negative. Stop hating on the UFC. We need these Apex cards to give these fighters a chance to become superstars, which I laugh and shrug my shoulders at and shake my head a little bit. But then I talk about UFC 314. I have been so fired up for this card. I love it. And I'll just look at it for those 2 fights. I love the main event. Dominic Reyes could potentially work his way back into a light heavyweight title fight. Who the hell would have ever predicted that if he beats Nikita Krylov? Like, there's all these different storylines. We have Chase Hooper fighting Jim Miller, like an old guy against a super young dude. Like, there's all these different storylines. And when I say this card is so good, everyone's just like, oh, well, Volkanovski's on a 2-fight losing streak. He's been knocked down 2 fights. I think you're overselling this card. Make up your friggin' minds. Are we being too negative or are we being too positive? You decide, but I'm hearing it from both ends, and it's driving me insane.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, this card has a lot of substance to it and big draw cards that we're going to go through. It's interesting, though, because the follow-up to this, we got UFC 315, Bilal JDM, and Shevchenko's on that card. And, of course, it's great to see the welterweight title back in the mix, but that's not a blockbuster fight that's going to capture the masses. In the UFC 316, Merab Sean, a fight where it should be interesting, but people kind of not quite sure if Sean really deserves that rematch. And then Pena Kayla, which can kind of bring a bit of firepower to that women's division. But again, not a crazy fight. Chuck, is the UFC lining up their chessboard the right way to get things going here? Or do they realize that they're really lacking in star power and big fights to get people back into the sport the way they used to be?
I mean, if you were to go down and look at cards of the past, you guys tell me, because sometimes I'm wondering, like, are we just changing our idea of what, good pay-per-views are? Because there was a time, if you go back, a decade, there was a time when you might get 3 really good fights, but then there would be a bunch of intrigues, kind of sprinkled into a card. We were pretty okay with that. These days, like, you look at this card that's about to happen, you've got all the way through the prelims. I feel like there's quite a few really intriguing fights for a variety of reasons. Guys like you mentioned, Jim Miller and Chase Hooper and those kind of guys. But there's, you've got like a number 1 women's fight, a number 1 contender women's fight kind of happening, thrown into this card, which is kind of nuts, man. So I don't know if it's just that what is happening? Because our expectations getting to the point where we're like, hey, man, everything's got to blow us away every single time? Or is it that we're just inundated, like you mentioned, with these Apex cards? You start to lose momentum over the course of time, and it just starts to feel different no matter what they're rolling out. Like, you kind of lose the general enthusiasm for these cards. But I have to say, man, of all the cards, and I hate these conversations sometimes because it feels like recency stuff because, it's the one in front of me, so it seems like the biggest one. But dudes, this looks to me like a pretty damn good card, man. I mean, I've been looking at it, you always kind of get through the last hurdle and then you start to examine what's coming up. And as I was looking at this card, I was like, this seems about as solid as a card as they put on this year. So I feel like, from my perspective, I don't know if you'd consider it a diehard perspective or, how you'd want to label it at this point, 17 years covering the game. But to me, this is a really, really good card, man. I think it offers something for everybody. The star power that used to be a guy like Paddy Pimblett, if he was thrown onto a card like this, that mattered because there was always one guy that you're like, oh, that guy's kind of a little bit transcendent of just the fight card of what's happening. I feel like they've got a little bit of that. To me, it's got a little bit of everything, man.
Speaking of blow, how coked up do we think UFC 314 will be? Great question. Not sure if, well, the fighters can't, but I imagine the crowd will be going to the bathroom a lot. It's Miami. Are we anticipating, Chuck and Mike, are we anticipating a wild crowd here in Miami? Is this thing going to go off, you think?
So I just came back from there. I went down there early just for a piece that I'm working on. So I was just at the hotel.
Yeah.
I was just
at the hotel.
A piece. Yes. Just like your interpreter. There was a girl. There's a girl over there that I really like. She's my piece. No, there's no, but I got to say, I haven't really spent a lot of time down in Miami, man, but dude, it's a vibe, right? Like if you guys have been down there, it's like, it's a vibe to itself. Yeah. I could see some partying going on this week, man. It's a pretty crazy thing. And I saw a lot of people kind of hanging around the hotel and, I didn't see a lot of sober people. I'll say that, hanging around the fighter hotel. So it's, it should be fun.
All right, let's get into the card. I want to quickly get into Alex Volkanovski. He looks great, guys, right? Physically, how good does he look? He looks ripped. He's had the time to recover. He's been training with JDM at Freestyle MMA in Wingdang over there in New South Wales. Down in my neck of the woods, I'm in Melbourne, probably a couple of hours away by plane. And it seems like this training camp has been really ongoing for a really, really long period of time. They had Diego Lopez sort of in their crosshairs for a while. I've spoken to his head coach. They know that guy inside out. My question to you is, with this break, I'll go to you first, Mike. And with this shape and the fact that they're able to game plan here and have the proper lead up, what kind of version of Alex Volkanovski do you think we see come this weekend? We know the age could be a factor. We know the fact that he's taking damage could have potentially changed him. What version of Alex Volkanovski do you think we see, Mike Heck, this weekend?
It's hard to say because, there's that dreaded stat of fighters over 35 who fight for belts usually don't do very well. And guys who lose undisputed belts and then fight for it later down the line usually don't get it back. Like there's all these different statistics that are against Volkanovski right now. But having said that, dude is in tremendous shape. You can tell he's taking it very seriously. He talked at Media Day today about how long this camp has been. He hasn't cheated on the diet at all. He hasn't drank any alcohol at all, which is kind of a change of pace for as long as he's been doing it, as many number of weeks as he's been doing it, heading into a fight. And he's been essentially in fight camp for 4 or 5 months. He was ready to fight Ilia Topuria. He wanted that rematch. He started breaking him down. He was taking Ilia very seriously. And then Ilia decides to make the decision to vacate the belt and go up to 155. And now we get Diego Lopez in there. It's just such a great fight because I can't get their press conference face-off out of my mind before UFC 313. They stood up. Diego Lopez looks like a freaking middleweight compared to Alexander Volkanovski. He looks gigantic. He looks so big. But Volk has got such a great fight IQ. He's so well coached. And this guy makes adjustments on the fly as well, if not better, than anybody that I've ever seen compete in the sport. The problem is he's been brutally knocked out in his last 2 fights, and Diego Lopez hits like a freaking freight train. So the biggest question I have in this fight is, can he take punishment? Can he take a big shot from Diego Lopez, especially if Lopez is able to sit down on something big? How does that chin hold up? And I think that's like my biggest question. I think the longer this fight goes, the better the chances are for Volkanovski. I don't think that's really any secret here. So I think he's going to look great, but again, if he gets caught with something and that chin gets cracked, it could be night for him. So let's see if he can extend this fight.
Yeah.
There's the image. This is the image that Mike Heck refers to. This is what he thinks about right now.
Yeah, that is crazy looking.
Before bed, look at this. I caught up with Diego in Sydney when all those guys were around and media weren't allowed to basically speak to anyone, and everyone was just standing around staring at them like, please let me interview someone, please. and also wondering how they're going to pay off their flight home. And man, he was massive. He was like bigger than me, super tall. And me and Christian Cicchini, who's a really great videographer down this way, we're like, bro, what the hell? Like, this guy's in the same division as Alex Volkanovski. This is outrageous. So you're 100% right, Mike. People don't realize how big he is. But Chuck, when Luke Thomas was on this show this week, he said there's no doubt that if we were dealing with the best version of Alex Volkanovski, none of us would be like, oh, Diego Lopez probably has a chance to win here. Like, all of us would probably be like, he's going out there, he's beating Diego Lopez. So how close do you think Alex can get to that version? And if like what Mike says, if he goes out there and Lopez catches him, boom, early in the fight and puts him out, is there a potential that we might see Alex Volkanovski even look to finish things up in the octagon if things go really dominantly for Diego Lopez here in Miami?
It's always such a danger because you remember the vintage forms, right, of like a guy like Volkanovski who for all those years looked untouchable, man. I mean, he's breaking off guys who defined, the division, the eras, of which they lived in with, Holloway, Aldo, these types of guys. And the way he was doing it, Mike was mentioning it, just fighter IQ, making adjustments, doing stuff that you're like, wow, man, this is like a different level he's playing on. Now, do I think that he can flash back and be that vintage form? Of course. I think he's the most focused guy. Like Mike was mentioning, man, like he if you watched him in his interview, he was saying he didn't drink. He wasn't like even having cheat meals, during this thing. This is a different kind of Volkanovski. These are all very good intentions. It's all the right thing. Like, what is this going to be? 14 months away. There were so many mental things kind of going into his last couple fights, including some red flags where he was basically saying, man, I don't know what I would do with that fight. I kind of have to have a fight planned. Otherwise, I'm kind of a detriment to myself when I idle. Things like that. I feel like he's in a much healthier place. Does this translate to that one big equalizer, which is the thing that we're talking about? If he takes a big shot, is he able to just keep going? Is he able to just shake it off and keep going? To me, that is the whole question, man. It's not going to be some kind of like, cage rust because he's been out a while. It's no question if he can, make the fight his own. I think he still has everything that he's ever had, like his whole arsenal. I'm not even worried about his age so much, man. But there is something about when your chin starts to go and you get in, you kind of talk yourselves into like, this is going to be the guy that we know, the guy that we fell in love with. And he takes that shot and you're like, oh no, we deluded ourselves. That's my biggest fear for this fight, man.
We got someone in the comment section saying that Volk used to weigh 349 pounds.
349.
He used to play local football over here.
Warilla. Where's Warilla next to you? Isn't that what it's called? Like Warilla Gorillas?
I want to show you guys this. I want to show you guys a little highlight of Volk doing his thing over here in some local football in Australia and get your reaction to this. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Here we go. Look at this run. Are we impressed?
Bulldozer, man.
Well, he catches the man over here. Some highlights. And look at this. I think that's
him.
I think that's him running all the way.
He's got some speed, man.
I don't think he was.
Is that pretty good? And I'm thinking,
I don't think he was 349. I mean, that's just.
I reckon over there. Let's see. What do we think? Maybe about 100, 89, 90. 100?
Yeah, that makes more sense, right?
Something like that.
It was something like that because I remember I talked to him. I mean, right around his first fight in the UFC, maybe right after that, like before his next one. And he was talking. I mean, the biggest thing about him was that he had transformed his body, right? Like from like this, like 50 pounds or whatever it is from wherever he was playing. So it never stops being remarkable that he's had basically 2 careers in 2 different bodies. Like, to me, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. 210 pounds, it says Mike Heck on the internet. The big man was 210 pounds. That's pretty impressive. What do you guys think Diego Lopez has to do here outside of, okay, we know he's going to be coming at Volk. He's going to be aggressive. Outside of him going in there and catching Volk, what do you think Lopez needs to do here for his best chance to win? Because we know Alex Volkanovski is an expert at fighting people on the outside, feints, using his kicks, keeping people on the outside. And then, of course, he's very strategic when it comes to the way he grapples people. Diego Lopez, very dangerous submissions, but Alex Volkanovski, great wrestler. He was supposed to wrestle here, I believe, for Australia at one point. Good position control. If you're Diego Lopez's coach, outside of the fact that you go, run at him and knock him out. What else do you say to him to solidify your chances of winning here? What do you think, Mike?
You know, did you watch Ilya Taporia knock out Volkanovski? Do that. Just make moves and, you know, be somewhat aggressive. But I think Diego Lopez coming out and being methodical, like still throwing big shots, but not throwing caution to the wind and just getting after it early on, and let Volk like maybe get a false sense of security, land a couple leg kicks, try to throw him up, but still try to return something. And then you come out in round 2 and you kind of have it figured out. You're inching closer and closer to Volk. You're backing him up a little bit, putting him on his back foot, and then kapowie. That's when you go in there and make the shot. Now, is Diego Lopez, in his infinite wisdom, that type of chess player when it comes to fist fighting? Who knows? Maybe he is. Maybe this is the game plan. But I think him working at Oklahoma State with David Taylor and freaking Wyatt Hendrickson, who, you know, just beat Gable freaking Steveson in a wrestling match. I think being able to work and get locked in a room with those guys for several weeks is going to help him if things get to the floor. But Volk is also very defensively savvy, especially on the ground. Islam Makhachev, you know, got takedowns, but he was very difficult to hold down. Makhachev couldn't submit him, couldn't get him out of there on the ground. So Volk is going to be fine down there. It's just a matter of Lopez mixing things up a little bit, making Volk uncomfortable as much as possible, and not letting Volk just sustain momentum for long stretches in this fight, because Volk is a downhill kind of a guy. And if Volk goes out there and wins the first 2 rounds, this fight's a wrap, in my opinion. Like, I think Volk cruises to 49-46, maybe a 50-45. Though the first 10 minutes of this fight is going to tell me everything I need to know, I think. And I'm very curious how Lopez sort of carries himself in those first 2 rounds. Are we going to get the Diego, try to get him out of there in 30 seconds, or are we going to get a guy who's got the lights on him, first main event, first title fight in Miami, massive card, following whatever the hell is going to happen between Michael Chandler and Paddy Pimblett? Like, there's going to be a lot of pressure on this man. He seems calm, cool, and collected, but when those lights turn on, how can he handle that? I'm very curious to see what the first 2 rounds of this fight are going to look like.
Very fascinating. That Joe Lopez, so no Diego Lopez, but Joe Lopez, the head coach of Alex Volkanovski, said the same thing, Mike. Couple of rounds, and then he thinks Diego Lopez is going to be in a bad spot, bad night at the office. I think that's their plan, systematically destroy and dismantle Diego Lopez, because when it comes to plan Bs for Diego Lopez, outside of running forward and knocking guys out, I wonder what that's going to be. Quick question for you, Chuck. Are we talking about the greatest of all time here in Alex Volkanovski when it comes to featherweight? And if he does win this belt back, what does that add to the legacy? Does that solidify it?
Don't you say it, Chuck. Don't you do it.
You do it, Chuck. Don't listen to him.
Do it.
It's like you guys are like the devil and the angel on my shoulder here. I'm like, okay, which way I go with?
Come on, Chuck.
I think so, man. Is this upset you, Mike? Like, you could explain yourself, but I mean, just given the longevity and to do it again, and I know like he would have to, maybe you need to see him beat Ilya, right? Like you need to see him beat Ilya or something like this. But dude, he was 13-0. He beat the other legends. If he gets it back, I would have a hard time saying. I mean, I would. Let's put it this way. I would lean that way. I'd be leaning that way, that he's the best that we've seen. But real quick, Diego Lopez also knows what we're talking about. Like you're mentioning Joe Lopez. I think Diego Lopez, like your best thing, right, is just say like, we don't want to be down 2-0 in this. Like, there's no way they're going to actually come out there and be like, let's play a tentative game, figure this out, dial in. He's got a plan A, and his plan A is going to be to go out there and do what he does. That's what he's going to do. That's going to be the thing. And I think also, like, let's just say he's not able to knock out Volk right away. Like he doesn't go out, but he lands something. You wonder, especially if it hurts Volk, like you wonder if that just plants just enough to make Volk a little bit hesitant, because he doesn't want to go down this way either. You look at the stakes in a fight like this. Obviously, if Alexander Volkanovski loses it, man, he's kind of, we know how this works. 36 years old, you're clearly on the downslide, and people are just going to start to put you aside. They're not going to look at you the way they are. So the pressure's going to fall a little bit over there too, man. You have a guy who's 30 years old, I think, something like that. Diego, he's in that range. Very hungry fighter. I know that when I was talking to him in December, they thought it could be either Yair or it could be Volkanovski, because they knew something was happening with Ilya. And man, they wanted this fight. I can't even describe to you guys how much like Jason House and all the guys in that camp were like, that's the fight we want. That is the fight that they know exactly what they want to do. And I don't think they're going to want to go in there and play chess. You know what I mean? They're going to want to go in there and go right through them. So I'd be shocked if Diego comes out tentative in this fight.
Great questions here. Dennis is just a clickbait twat. Greatest at getting KO'd unconscious twice back to back. What did I tell my mum about leaving comments during a live tweet? I don't understand why she keeps. No, but I love the love here. No, he got. I agree with you guys. But what about you, Mike? You think the greatest of all time is Jose Aldo?
Yes, I do.
What
I understand that Volk beat him. I understand Volk beat him in a. How do I want to nicely state that fight after going back and rewatching it recently? A workman-like performance. Very smart. Okay, a very smart win. A workman-like performance. Like, man,
but he had to do it in Brazil. He had to do it in Brazil.
That's true.
That was tough. That was a tough situation for him.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's best and greatness are two different things to me, and I think Aldo, with all those title defenses and the run that he was on before the 13 seconds, was just like, damn, man, like it's so hard to beat. And I think Volk winning the belt back puts him back in the discussion, but I think he needs to. Honestly, I think the Ilya win gets him real. If he beats Ilya, if he had beaten Ilya, we had a legitimate conversation, and then he was maybe one win away from being right there. But
one win away,
getting done up, man. Getting done up the way he did.
Or Volk, man. He's always like behind the 8 ball in Mike's mind. He's like, no, he's
so
five.
Mike sees a hot chick on the beach, goes, oh, she's about a 3 out of 10 right there. Maybe
no, man.
She had a couple of friends, she could get up to a 6.
we're so quick to jump on this. Like we did it with Max Holloway. We're doing it with Volk. Like in Volk, I think Volk has a better case than Max does, certainly. But we were having this conversation about freaking Kamaru Usman being the greatest welterweight of all time. What?
Aaron Woodley as
well.
Planet? A couple of us had that conversation too.
What planet was that even a discussion? It was just like those things kind of irk me about this. Just like, well, he's got 3 title defenses, so he's the second best. How close is he to George St. Pierre? Not. He's not close. He's so far away.
How far is Islam Volk's then? Great. How far is Islam then from Habib then in your mind?
He's pretty close, man.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to give scale here, so that makes sense.
He's pretty close. He's pretty close. I would like to have
create the argument.
Yeah. Who's he gonna fight? Like if he beat Armin, if that fight actually happened and he did to Armin what he did to Moicano, then I'm like, oh boy, he might be 1 win away from beating him. So he's close. He's getting there.
What do you think, Chuck? I think that he's missing that big Conor McGregor fight. You know, that big massive fight, that big super fight, that big rivalry. And I think that Ilya Topuria fight could be like if he goes out there and destroys him, you know, for all the casuals, be like, whoa, you know, this guy just went out there and did that to a guy who knocked out Max Holloway and Alex Volkanovski. It's that little extra sprinkling on top of his legacy, I think. But if he goes up to welterweight, man, you can't deny that. And also, he's pretty dominant, right? Like, he goes out there and finishes guys. I think just maybe the loss early on or whatever.
That's the only thing.
And he would never talk about it because Khabib is his man. That whole team would never talk about it like that.
And Khabib was just so dominant, right? Like we were making a big deal of Conor McGregor winning a single round, even though clearly, I mean, in my mind anyway, clearly the round was kind of being taken off a little bit so he could set up his finish. But I mean, we were making a big deal of that. When you're that dominant and you're that far ahead of your field, it's tough to catch it. But at the same time, if you look at the strength of schedule with a guy like Islam and what, you know, who he's fought and potentially who he still has to go through. So let's say he goes through an Ilya Topuria and he's able to dominate that fight. I think the strength of schedule bends to Islam at that point. Like he's had a harder set of guys as the escalations got there.
See, that I think actually holds him back a little bit, is because got a title shot after beating and I don't blame him for this because he was set up to fight all these different guys, and it's not his fault that guys fell off or Armin pulls out the day before a fight, but he gets a title fight after beating Bobby Green which is, that was the big argument, them saying like he shouldn't get the title fight, even though we knew how good he was. But it got to the point where how many times are you going to book him against Beneil Dariush and then the fight doesn't happen? You just kind of take who comes. And then he beats Oliveira, and then he beats Volk, and then he beats Volk again, and then he beats Dustin Poirier, who beats Benoit Saint-Denis, and none of these guys are like the number one contenders. But that's why lightweight's so good. There usually never is one. And then finally we get a number one contender. We get Arman Tsarukyan. He's right there. Yeah. And then whatever happens, happens. And he has to fight Renato Moicano, which was a stylistic nightmare for Renato Moicano. You could have given Renato Moicano, as much as I love the man, a decade to prepare to fight Islam Makhachev. And that fight would have gone the exact same way, even with the decades worth of preparation for it. So I think that kind of hurts him. He beats Arman. Great. Ilya, I wonder how the fan base reacts to that. Is it, wow, this guy's legit, or is it, well, should have stayed at featherweight. It's not a lightweight. See, he's too small. That's just
why they don't want to fight him, though. That's why they don't want to fight him.
Yeah.
Mike holds Ally Quinta way up here, man. I will say that.
Friend of the show. Gaethje. I love that guy.
Yeah. Gaethje,
Yeah.
Michael
No,
Johnson.
I know what you're saying.
Hey, that Ally Quinta performance, that was impressive. That guy really took it that last second. Hey, just quickly, super chat out here, $9.99. Making sure that I can keep a roof over my head. I don't know when the media decided that Lopez is a world beater. Only reason he has a chance is because Mars Volkanovski's prime is 10 years, 10 leagues better than Lopez and would have done whatever he wanted. I guess that's what makes it interesting, though. I think the matchmaking is right here. You wouldn't want to see Lopez match up any earlier to Volk. But thanks for the super chat. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Also, there's a guy called Kevin from Chicago in the chat, guys. Keeps talking about people's peckers. Kevin from Chicago, you got to stop. Comments like, I saw Volk with Craig Jones in the sauna a couple of years back. It wasn't pretty. Kevin, you got to stop, man. You got to stop. It's 7:30 in the morning here in Australia. I don't know if you hear from
happy hour where I'm at, man. I mean, hey.
Hey. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to let us know. Also, he might be coming to kill me. Anyway, Pitbull versus Yair, right? This is what's interesting. Do you guys feel like if Pitbull goes out here, beats Yair, which is going to be a tall task in itself, he surpasses, obviously, Mosa, who's now apparently fighting Pico. So does that mean we could potentially get a Pitbull-Volkanovski fight next, in your opinion, if Pitbull's able to go out here and have a good performance? A fight that many people have spoken about for a while. Do you think that might be the next fight, Mike?
If Lopez wins, I don't think either of these guys are going to leapfrog Movsar. Is honestly
even Yair, Mexico.
Well, okay, if Yair just runs over Pitbull and Lopez runs over Volkanovski, that fight in Guadalajara would be huge. Would the fans be overly thrilled with it? No, because I've seen it. Like I've seen it already. Like, oh, they'll never give Yair doesn't deserve a title shot. Who cares? When has that ever mattered in the UFC? You put that fight in Guadalajara, especially with what Yair said at Media Day today about, I have an issue with Diego Lopez claiming Mexico and Brazil. Like, I don't claim America.
And America.
Like,
America. Like, he has a house in
He's
Vegas.
claiming all these places. Like, that alone. Yeah, that alone right there is your countdown video. Like, that's everything you need. And then you throw it in Guadalajara with how much that country adores both guys for different reasons. That's just a humongous fight. I still think, but both guys have even said, like, I want Movsar if I win. They both have said it. So, I think Movsar, I'm bummed. Like, I might be on an island here, Chuck Mindenhall. Yeah. I might just be. I am bummed that we're not going to see Ilya Taporia versus Movsar Evloev. I'm actually bummed about that. Oh, good. See, New England is sticking together.
I'm one of those guys. We made
going on.
Well, we made a at the beginning of the year, we projected our big our big whatever it's going to be for this year. What's our big surprise going to be this year? And I basically said that Movsar would be the champion. So for him to actually get that shot, it's going to have to get the shot, right, for that to come into fruition. But I'm really entertained with this fight. I think this is great that people are actually calling him out. I thought he'd be the last guy that anybody would ever say, like, I'd like to fight that guy. To me, that's wonderful. And also, man, let's just say Diego, right? Like, I get it. In that first fight, what was it, like a week's notice or something like that? Like when Diego got that fight, you have a great backstory. And if you need if you need a good solid B-side, for that first fight. That's a great one, isn't it? Like, all right, well, we've got a backstory. They already fought. It was a close fight, whatever. You throw it in there. To me, I look forward to this, man. I know that most people don't really like the Evelev thing, but I'm down for it.
But he's fighting
I don't
Pico,
get it, though.
Is he fighting Pico?
No, he's not fighting Pico.
No?
No, it's not fighting Pico.
No.
I mean, maybe it comes to fruition, but,
well,
it
Pico
doesn't
said
really
it
make
was.
sense.
Pico said it
doesn't make sense. But
yeah, it was discussed, and apparently from everything I've heard and a couple of people I've talked to, like, first of all, I love that match. I love that idea, but I totally understand why Movsar would think that is, and his team would think it's the most foolish idea in the world when you're like legitimately could fight for the belt. So he's making the wise choice to just chill and wait to see how the title fight goes, and maybe he can slot his way in there, which is smart. And I still don't understand this boring paintbrush that Movsar Evloev is painted with. Dana shows up at a press conference.
That's Dana.
I know. And the Arnold Allen fight, like, honestly, UFC 297
I swear to God,
it was terrible. That was the best fight on the card.
I know. When he said that, I was like, no, he's confused. He thinks that was a different fight. Like, he's confused.
He thinks it was Chris Curtis and Marc-Andre Barrios. That's what he thought it was. And then it became he's the boring fighter. And then the Sterling fight was fun as hell too. Like, and then, when Dana says these things, people jump on board with it. It's crazy, man. Like, it's crazy. Is he freaking Justin Gaethje? No, but very few are. But it's because he has a bunch of decisions, but they're not like boring decisions. No. He's good.
You know what I love about Dana? He didn't even go to the Vegas card. He went and played $10 million Baccarat instead, and then was giving away. He was like, hey, I lost, guys, but I'm going to give out some money. How about L&W keeping things going here in terms of making sure I don't go to prison for tax fraud? I've seen 7 Lopez fights. He has one gear and huge liability, as Ilya would have sent him into retirement. You know what's interesting? I'm very interested if Lopez is able to win the belt here and maybe even defend it once or twice. I would actually be very interested to see a Lopez Topuria fight, just because that would be like nonstop action. I spoke to Topuria's coach, by the way, this week, fellas, Jorge Clement, who's a bit of a character. They do like a promotion over there, War FC, and they do all these crazy videos. And he said that's probably unlikely that we see a return to featherweight for Ilya Topuria. Luke Thomas thinks we'll only see Topuria around for a couple more fights, and then maybe he moves on.
That could be. Sometimes you don't get the sense that he's a fighter in the way that we like to think of fighters, that he's more of an athlete. I don't know how to explain it. I'm not saying he doesn't have like the hunger or like something in him that's like, drives him to this, but he strikes me a little bit more like professional athletes than he does a fighter. So I could fully see that, especially let's just say that he's able to win his next couple fights, reaches a certain kind of fame. You know what I mean? I could see him doing the GSP and just being like, all right, guys, thank you. This was fun.
Yeah. He has this aura about him that is like, I'm too good for this shit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
understand that. How does a guy so popular, he had barely any fights and he was already like a superstar. And then his brother as well is like a massive star. I'm like, what is happening? Is there something, do we know? Is there some kind of secret world these guys go to and come back and they got like 1 million followers on social media and they're in the middle of like national TV just waving?
He's got 2 countries
doing articles on MMA. We're just like putting stuff out there, and it's like, what is happening?
He's got 2 countries too, man. Like he's like, I'm collecting countries. I'm going to represent.
I got Ukraine, but they don't have the YouTube thing going at the moment, and they didn't when I lived there either. It was hard back then. Quick one. UFC 314 somehow disappoints. How much fuel would it add to the so many boring UFC cards discussion? Fellas, I'm going to go out here and say I think it's impossible. I think it's impossible.
You're putting the
out of all the cards that I've seen, I don't want it. I know Mike's like, don't do it, brother. Don't do it. I think
don't pull a Bisping here.
It's impossible for this card to be.
Not only will it underdeliver now, they're going to like 3 fights will fall off by the time we get to Saturday. I'll be like,
hey, that Prada's Neil fight, that was a sick fight, but I don't mind it getting moved because they could spread some love around. Yeah.
So if this card ends up being stinky, and again, I'd be stunned if that's the case. I will not be as down on it because unlike UFC Vegas 105, the UFC actually, they tried here. They attempted to put on a good fight card. UFC Vegas 105, they did not try at all. And that's my issue with a lot of this stuff right now. And another big issue is, and I'll never forget, we were doing a pre-fight show before an Apex card, and they just announced, hey, we're going back to St. Louis. Wait till you see what main event we're about to give you. Buy your tickets. Don't miss out to watch Derek Lewis versus Rodrigo Nascimento. And I'm like, what? What in the friggin' world are we doing?
But what did you just announce? Derek Lewis fighting in St. Louis. Find out against who this week.
Yeah. Just him. Just him.
Yes.
Pro wrestling. Yeah.
WWF
opponent.
superstars, baby.
Exactly.
Yeah. But like, and then they break the North American fight night gate record with that. Like, they don't have to try anymore. There's no pressure on them to try, because no matter what fights they put together, people are going to buy tickets for it. They are going to sell 18,000 tickets. They're going to do it $16 million gate, and it does not matter what they put out there. There's no pressure against them. There's no competing entity, and there's certainly no battle with fans to not reach into their pockets and buy tickets. So like, they don't have to try. Now, occasionally, I think UFC 311, they tried. 312, not so much. 313 kind of tried. They also had a lot of bad luck, if we're being honest. This one, Dana loves Miami, loves the fans of Miami. Every time they go to Miami, they bring a banger of a card. 287 rocked. 299 was awesome. This one's no different. They're trying. So I can't fault them for trying, even if this card ends up being boring. So you will not hear that from me, because they gave a shit about this one.
They did. And I think sometimes the juxtaposition from a really bad card to something like this is so severe. It's almost, this is what defines our era now compared to coverage from the past, right? Like the types of events they put on. You never had a card that was so dwarfed by like another card like you do these days. But clearly they kind of stacked this card up. Sometimes you look at this and you're like, you know, like you mentioned, Carlos Pradas gets pulled off this card, put onto a card a couple weeks now in Kansas City. Not only does it enhance, I don't know how you guys feel about the main event, the new main event. I love it. But not only does it enhance that card, but it loses nothing in this one other than you having a couple of fight nerds on it versus one, right? To me, this card is from top to bottom. If you're a fight fan, like, you're going to like it. I don't think it's going to disappoint on any level. I think you're going to get plenty of finishes. You'll have, you know, if you're a skill guy, I think you're going to see plenty of that. I think it's just got a little bit of something for everybody, man. And I agree with you, Mike. This one feels like a little bit in the 300, you know, in that vein where they're like, let's just make sure that we've got a really, really solid card from the opening fight all the way through.
Yeah.
Can I just quickly
yeah, please.
Okay, Mike. Not gonna go.
No, I was gonna say, because like, you look at 315 and you could tell Canada's been getting screwed with all these pay-per-views. Just awful cards.
What about
Going all the way
Australia?
back to
What about
Calgary,
Australia?
remember?
What about Australia?
Yeah.
Australia's
But I
like
mean,
a
like-
local fighting card, and then it's like, hey,
Yeah.
we've got two international guys up at the top, like some crazy stuff here as well.
They're like, we got Kaikar France, baby.
He's a fantastic man, and I'm excited for his career.
Yes.
But we would like to see Vanderlei Silva versus Chael Sonnen, please.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, 350, like, because and then kind of go back 315 is good, but not a soul is going to spend $85 on it.
No.
Because there's no heat
All
there.
right. Is that how much it costs?
You know what I mean?
$85.
85, baby.
After taxes, yeah, it's like 85.
It's like a
bucks
few
now.
$100 Australian right now with a conversion. Hey, just quickly, speaking of WWE shows, I know people out there now have been training to become a pro wrestler. And my little gym over here in Melbourne, Victoria, they're doing a little show. So if you guys are around Melton, Victoria, check out Mayhem Pro Wrestling. I'll be there helping set up the ring and do the thing with the boys. The guys work so hard. I feel so proud of these guys. So check that out. That's in Melton this Friday. Come say hi. And also a big shout out to Manscaped. Guys, how smooth are your balls? Because 20% off, code word submission. Manscaped has you sorted, baby. Free shipping. Use code word submission. Actually helps the show keep going. Stops me from losing the house. And also, if you guys are traveling, Saley eSIM. Look, as Chuck laughs, hey, man, you got to sell out at some point, brother.
Sure.
Saley eSIM is the time to do it, because wherever you guys go around the world, you download the Saley app and you can use your phone anywhere. Forget about getting different SIM cards. Well, I used to line up at the airport in America and buy like plans for months at a time, only to use it for a week. You know what I'm saying, fellas? This way, I just quickly top it up. Use the Saley eSIM, and I'm good to go. Use code word submission, 15% off your first purchase. Thank you so much to Saley as well for sticking with Submission Radio. Now, Chuck, first question to you real quick as we come back in. Pitbull is now making his UFC debut. He's a little bit older. question for you is, if we see Pitbull in his prime in the UFC, does he reach the belt? Is he a champion?
Gosh, that's such a good question, man. I mean, there's a chance, but when you look at kind of the guys that have been in the UFC, it wouldn't be a slam dunk, man. I think that Pitbull, he's had quite a up and down kind of career. It's almost like, I wonder if his story is very unique in the sense, like, he lost, the first couple times he was doing the Bjorn Rebney tournaments way back in the day, he would lose, he would get all the way there and then lose. And then finally he was able to get over that hump. And he's kind of had an up and down career, man. Quite a few losses for a guy, for a guy who's celebrated at 37, I think he is right now, kind of coming into his debut. I think that that's what we love about him, man, is just that he's a resilient guy. He's accomplished so much. Like, he was a two division champion. He's a 2-time champion in featherweight. Like, it's been a fun ride. I'm not sure, though, that it would have translated in the UFC, just given the roster that they've had, into just him winning a title. He may have spent a little time with it, but I don't feel like that's a slam dunk. What do you think, Mike? Do you think he would have been?
You got a sassy face on, Mike. What do you think?
It's sassy because the question is delightful. Like, it's a really good question.
Yeah.
And I think about, would he beat Jose Aldo? Yeah, would he beat Jose Aldo? Probably not.
Right.
Max Holloway, I mean, dude, Holloway was just on a run right there. He was really tough to beat because you couldn't, like, Pitbull's best chance to beat him would be to, like, just wreck him, knock him out, and you can't do it. Especially back then, like, you could hit Holloway with a baseball bat and he wasn't going anywhere. So that'd been a really tough fight for him to win. Volk, the way he was putting on those performances, man. I mean, honestly, like, and I joke about the whole Volk GOAT conversation, but if you make a list of the 5 greatest title defenses in UFC history, Volk is probably 2 of those. On it, like the Holloway win and the Zombie win were just like perfect games. Went out there and pitched a perfect game on both of those fights. Like, he's so good. Would Pitbull on his best day beat that dude? I don't know. So it is a great question. I would say no, but would I be shocked if Pitbull went in and won the UFC title? No, of course not. Dude's a legend.
It would actually it would be great for him this late, right? Like, if he comes in there, his legacy, for the way his career has played out, for him to come in here at this age now, not only beat Yair, but then maybe somehow catapult himself into a title picture and to win it, it would be, I'm not sure you can find too many examples of guys who are doing that. Like, Michael Bisping's run was very, we talk about all the time, like, that's improbable. This would have to be up there in terms of that sort of improbability for me.
Yeah, I think it's almost like you can make a case of him coming into the UFC now, kind of like what you said, Chuck, is like the perfect scenario. The guy was in Bellator, did his thing, got his championships. Now he comes into the division where it's pretty quiet. Like, obviously we've got Mosar and some other guys around, but it's a good sort of open time for him to come in, potentially get a title shot. Not a bad time. And then if he does get a title, is this version of Alex Volkanovski maybe a little bit more interesting than if he would have fought him a little back. Quick one here with Alan W, $49.99. Some love from the MK community. A shout out as well. Thank you, Alan. I really appreciate it. And by the way, shout out to the boys at MK who did a pregame. Jed Meshew was on there, Mike. Jed Meshew. And Chuck, you're a big fixture of the program there. Yeah. Shout out to BC and Luke. Those guys are killing it with those pregames.
They're cheating on me, man. I don't know what the hell was going on with Jed.
With that.
Kidding, of course. I love Jed.
Okay, what about this, guys? Paddy Pimblett versus Michael Chandler. This fight here, this is a very, very interesting fight. I see people out there saying Paddy Pimblett just doesn't have what it takes to beat a Michael Chandler because Chandler is on another level when it comes to his striking, his pressure, his power. I have other people saying here, and I've seen them say that Paddy Pimblett goes through Michael Chandler, potentially submits him, takes his back, sets himself up to potentially be the next big sort of title contender in the division. How are you guys feeling about this fight? We saw on the Embedded, Pimblett was saying ever since his kids were born, he's been taking this more seriously. It looks like he's been dieting properly, working out more properly. He looks like he's in better shape. But previously, in his previous fights, we've seen him make massive mistakes. But then Michael Chandler just runs at you like a freight train. He's a little bit like a WWE, UFC fighter, here to entertain. No real strategy, but with a skill set to get it done that he doesn't kind of use a lot of the time. Chuck, how you feeling about this fight?
I mean, I love it, but it's crazy to me that we're still in this Paddy Pimblett. Maybe you guys tell me, do you still feel like Paddy has this thing like, okay, we haven't seen him face anybody yet? Because I know that especially when he, there was the fight that everybody thought he'd lost, on the scorecard, so it felt like he'd won by a robbery at one point. His first fight in the UFC, remember he got rocked in the first exchange.
Yeah, by
and
Luigi.
people were like, yeah, and people were just like, okay, here we go. And some people don't forget these things, so it's kind of been a very strange career in that sense, but still, he's looked very good. It was a thankless ask to have to go beat Tony Ferguson in that situation. Like you knew it's no matter what he did.
Looked like he came back in a small part of that fight.
Yeah. Yes. But then the King Green thing, I'm like, all right, you went right through him. I'm like, okay, this to me, if he's able to do this, I know that Chandler's a little older. He's only 2-4 in the UFC. People forget that Chandler's not like winning the fights. He's just putting on great fights. Everybody loves to watch him at kind of in the twilight. That's the kind of fight he's going to put on. He's going to go in there and he's going to want to do this again. Do I think Paddy can win that fight? Yes. And if he does that, does that now catapult him into that space that we're talking about? Is he now a contender? I think it does, man. And it's partially because, he's had to overcome this weird stigma that he's just not a real fighter. And I think part of that is the weight thing. It's just part of that's just the way he's comported himself. Like he's he kind of presented himself in a cartoonish way. And I'm not trying to make it derogatory. He just kind of did. People weren't taking him as seriously, but they would have to then. And he would have a legit case if he plays this. I know people think this is crazy, but he'd have a legit. If he should be talking to Ilia Topuria. If he really wants that fight, he should be because that bad blood exists. They've already kind of planted the seeds. If he goes right through Chandler, given the kind of holding pattern right now that Ilia's in, not sure what's happening. It could get crazy for Paddy Pimblett this year, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating though, right?
If Paddy wins and Jack Della Maddalena wins the welterweight belt, Paddy Pimblett, Ilia Topuria is going to be for the vacant lightweight belt. Oof. They're going to make that fight. Without question, they're going to make.
Now
that
we're
fight.
Cooking. Now we're cooking.
Yeah,
timestamp. Pull that. That's the clip we're using right there.
They're got to do it. They're absolutely going to do it. So just be prepared for that to happen, because at that point, if Paddy beats Michael Chandler, I honestly think you just give him a title fight. Just give it to him. Let's sink or swim. And if he loses, so what? It's not that we are who you thought they were. He's still very good and he's still very popular. And if he loses to Islam or whoever's the champion, so what? It's not that big of a deal. I know Ariel Helwani was livid that they made Molly McCann versus Erin Blanchfield. I loved that matchmaking so much because no one thought Molly McCann could be a title contender, but she was winning. She was getting these highlight reel finishes. And then they just, after she beats the two worst fighters, maybe in the history of the division, they throw her in there with Erin Blanchfield at Madison Square Garden. At that point, I said, if Molly wins, you just throw in there with Valentina. Just throw her in there. Now it's now or never, because if you make her fight Caitlin Chookagian or go all the way up the ladder, she's going to lose, and then you lose all of that luster. And I kind of feel like they're in that same spot with Paddy right now. I'm in a weird way. I thought Paddy was going to beat Bobby Green. I'm having a hard time trying to convince myself that Michael Chandler can win this fight.
Right.
Because I don't think.
Why?
Because Michael Chandler's best chance to beat Paddy is he's going to have to knock him out. And Paddy's really tough to knock out. He is really tough to knock out. I don't know if Chandler's got it. I don't know if Chandler finished him. Having said that, because we have to make, I'm not a gambler. Jed's the gambler of the two of us, but on the watch party, I like to, I throw my little bets down. I am going to place a bet on Michael Chandler. It's a point spread bet just to try to get some value on him. And I'm going to bet on Chandler only because I think this is a 50-50 fight, but the more I think about it, I'm just how is Michael going to win? Is he going to wrestle Paddy Pimblett? Because that might go real bad for him.
He put that singlet way back at Mizzou, man.
Yeah, Paddy's not a bad striker. He's not terrible at it, and he's going to be way bigger than Chandler in there. He's going to have a big reach advantage. Yeah. He's going to look huge. So it's going to be fun as hell, but
can Paddy control distance? He's tall, but he can't really control distance. King Green, kind of just shot in on him. But before that, he was like hitting him with teeps and leg kicks. It was like a weird fight. Like people were like, what's going on with King Green? Why did he do that? And then we've seen him even with Tony Ferguson. He threw some heat, but like he's there in the pocket to be hit. And would you make a argument that, Chandler fights well with people like him who keep their chin in the air and are at that height? Like I can see Chandler going in the pocket and landing.
I'm not saying Chandler. I'm not saying Chandler can't win because he can. I just I feel like he's gonna have to the Oliveira fight, and I know it's Charles Oliveira. He's one of the best grapplers of all time, but if Paddy Pimblett did not study that fight every day, every minute, every hour in the lead to this fight, then he is doing a tremendous disservice to himself. Because he even said at media day, what I learned about the Charles Oliveira fight, Michael Chandler's very easy to tackle and take down and get on top. And that's all Paddy needs to do, really, to win this fight. He can go in there and try to throw heat with Chandler, and if it's not going well, he can just tackle him and lay on him and win the round. Just land a couple of punches. Like, he has that in his back pocket if he needs it. So it is a really interesting fight. It is 5 rounds. It'll be interesting to see Paddy go in 5 because I do think this is going to go long.
Wow.
So that's kind of how I see it. You got 2 guys who don't get finished.
You get 2 guys who get stunned. Look at him. Chuck is stunned. Look at his face.
None of that.
You think it's gonna end quick?
I'm kidding. I keep imagining, like you mentioning the tackling thing is kind of what I see. I just see a scenario where Paddy Pimblett's going to end up in a situation where he's in a dominant position on the ground, and a submission will come, and you'll be like, "Oh, here it is. Here it is." I kind of feel like it might let down in that sense, but I don't know. I mean, Michael Chandler goes out there to put on a show these days, and I think that's great because sometimes with guys like Paddy Pimblett, it's exactly what you want, man. A big spotlight fight.
Yeah.
People are seeing it. Spotlight fight. You get to go in there with a guy who's going to accommodate you and how you want to do it. That's great. But I could see the scenario where it just maybe the second, third round. It's on the ground. Paddy's in the advantageous position, gets his arm around the neck. It's over. That's the way. I don't know why, but that's just the way I see this thing going, man.
I just have a lot of questions. For some reason, I haven't had my Paddy Pimblett questions answered yet. I just want to see how he does against a guy like Michael Chandler who's going to go in the pocket and throw heat. And if he can keep his composure, I know he's fought some tough guys in the past. We can go through the people that he's fought, but I just want to see how he does against a sneaky veteran. A sneaky veteran, right? Because Michael Chandler, and I liked Mike Heck. Mike Heck's interview with Michael Chandler where he goes, people think you're a little bit of a dirty fighter. What do you think about that? And Chandler was like, yeah, like he's like a president, right? When you speak to him, it's like speaking to Barack Obama in his prime. Like that guy always hits all the right kind of chords when he speaks.
He should cheat though. Like we've been saying this forever. Every fighter
to win, Eddie Guerrero.
There should be a 5-minute session at the end of every gym's training sessions of grabbing the fence,
where you work on the cheating,
poke in the eye. Yes, because they're not going to call it. There's no point will be taken. No penalty will happen. Like you get 3 of them before we even start talking about taking a point. So yeah, man, like do what you got to do to win. He hit Oliveira in the back of the head 191 times, and the referee was
all of it. Cool. I would do the whole thing. Like go up there and be like, hey, let's pound 5 and then hit them as they're doing that. And then I would eye gouge them, kick them in the groin, grab the fence. I do all of it in the first 5 seconds of that fight.
No, but he's next level because he told Mike Heck, I think it was you, Mike Heck, that he said that he thought he was grabbing Dustin Poirier's chin when he was grabbing his mouth guard.
All right.
Love it. Just and then he.
It's like Shaggy. It wasn't me.
Was like, look, man, Charles Oliveira like took his chin and stuck it in my eyeball. Like that's not legal. But I would never call Charles Oliveira a cheater. I loved it.
He was eye gouging me with his chin. He said.
I loved it.
Can someone please hire this guy to be my lawyer next time because he is great at breaking this stuff down. Just quickly, fellas, I want to talk about Bryce Mitchell and John Silva. How are we feeling about this whole fight and the way that it's been built up here? And do we fold Bryce Mitchell for thinking that John Silva is the devil here? I got to admit, every time I see Silva do his thing, I do get kind of devilly vibes. He's just like on another level, right? He did this thing with Aaron Bronstetter where he like faced off into his camera and started barking. Can we fault Bryce Mitchell for thinking the devil is coming to Miami?
I've seen The Exorcist. I've seen this kind of behavior, man.
Did you see his media day today?
No, what happened? Bryce
so
Mitchell?
he's No, John. Oh God, Bryce Mitchell. Yeah.
Does he get him?
I saw his.
Yeah, sure. He was the first one. They got him
Yeah.
like out of the way, and it was fine. But Gene Silva's up there, and he's answering questions, and you could hear a voice like just so loud in the back. He thinks it's Bryce Mitchell, so he just gets on the mic and starts barking like as loud as he can. It turns out it's Daniel Cormier, like doing one of his like sit down interviews. But dude, Daniel Cormier. Like, once you realize that it's Daniel Cormier, you can't stop hearing him. Cormier is so loud. He is louder than John with a mic in his hand. And he was just he just barked as loud as he could at Daniel. It was so out of nowhere. This dude his facial expressions when he's asked questions, he is an absolute lunatic. And I'm actually wicked here for it. So, yeah, man. But Chuck, like, what have you made of this whole build to the fight? Because, like,
it
is what it is.
Is it ethical?
Yeah,
are we taking advantage of a
is.
man who is potentially, he's firm in his beliefs. Some of the stuff that he says we completely disagree with, has no place to it. Other stuff is stuff, he dated a witch, this and this. And then other stuff is like his faith, which, that's a serious kind of thing. UFC are monetizing it to make sure people get in. And they're bringing him against a guy that could potentially make it a rough night against him. Although Bryce is a very quality fighter. Is this right? Is this unethical? Or are we just talking about prize fighting, cage fighting, fast women and faster cars, Chuck? And Miami visits.
If you had a map, right? A map, and you put it on the ground, it's flat. Am I right about that? It's a flat map. So I'm kidding, of course, but they
are you drilling your nuts when you do it, Chuck, or is that a separate situation?
I find this, and it's not to make fun. I mean, hey, Bryce Mitchell is out there. He has no, he's not filtered. He's out there saying what's on his mind. If he's saying what's on his mind, we can perceive Bryce Mitchell any way we want. And the bottom line is, you don't see too many guys. Well, we don't have too many from Arkansas, really, on the roster. But you don't see too many guys who talk like this. Mike, I don't know where you grew up. I grew up in places where there were Bible Belts in the vicinity. I wasn't in one, but like, been in plenty of them, and there are a lot of people who talk like this. Everything's kind of about the evils going on around them and the temptations all around them, and all this. Like he today on his in media day, he's going all about like, you don't follow your heart, you don't do that because that'll lead to hell, and you got to follow God's word. And he was going on this. The very next question, he's like, yeah, if you're a gambling man, bet on me. He's talking about gambling. I'm like, which is it? Like you know. It's like, but that's Bryce Mitchell, and I love it when it gets almost into a holy war, and that you have such a strange character in Gian Silva who
has the Lord on his chest as well.
Yeah. And he's
Lord on his chest.
He's got that. I mean, so he's like almost like feels like a blasphemy, waiting to happen. But at the same time, he takes offense to this, man. I think he really regards himself as a very good person. And if you talk to the people within his camp, they talk about him this way. And guys like Rufy, one of his is a man of God who's like a very big man of God. So you have these scenarios where you're like, the offenses are just accumulated, and you got a guy who fights with emotion, and like Gian Silva, and you got a fight team that is just at an all-time high, kicking everybody's ass. What better could this be? Plus, you have Bryce Mitchell. We're burying the lead. The Bryce Mitchell, like you're mentioning, Mike, off the top, that people are paying attention to this guy, given all the Nazi Germany stuff that got him into this situation. People want to see him get his ass kicked, or at least some people do. And I'm like, Gian Silva's the perfect assassin, isn't he? Like, he's the perfect guy to come in and do this. Everything about this lead up has been fun to me, and I don't think anything, like, they can do whatever they want. It's not even that dark. It's just two guys from very different places coming at each other, which I love this sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like a WWE match in the 80s,
It is.
Someone coming in and then Real American hits for Gian Silva, even though he's Brazilian. And
like the Iron Sheik.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Mike, what kind of scenes will you have? Play it out in your mind. Silva goes out, knocks out Bryce Mitchell, starts barking at the mic, or Bryce Mitchell goes out there, and I wonder if he gets the mic if he wins, actually. He was going to try and sneak a Bible in there, this and that. I respect getting a Bible in the octagon, but what kind of scenes are we expecting either way? There's going to be big scenes either way, right?
This is an unpredictable fight. I have no idea who's going to win. I really don't. I know Silva's a huge favorite, but there is a very real chance, kind of like the Paddy situation where Bryce just tackles him a whole bunch, and Bryce is very good at that. And Bryce is very good at keeping you on the ground and holding you down. If you get back up, he'll just do it again. Like, that's what Bryce does. This is a fight he can win. So it would not shock me if he did. The whole thing is nonsense. And the whole thing of John Silva was just kind of at the right place at the right time, gets a big win, calls for Bryce. And it was just perfect. And it was it wasn't long after Bryce said what he said, and Dana, cut the promo on him and then just said, like, we're not going to punish him. We'll punish him in the octagon because that's what you guys want to see. You can pay money to watch Bryce Mitchell get his ass kicked, you son of a bitch. Like, you get,
Vince McMahon was in the room that day.
Yeah, man. Like, that's what it all that's what it all comes down to. Bryce's media day was so fascinating because it wasn't just the gambling thing, but like, he just went back and forth on so many things. He goes, he was talking about Natan. I think he was asked about Natan Levy, and I guess like they had a really heartfelt, like emotional conversation. And I guess they're cool now after like all the things they talked about. And he was talking about how great of a person that Natan Levy is, and World War II sucked. And then I think my favorite thing was he said, listen, man, there are some awful Christians out there. And he was basically like, and I'm paraphrasing,
he hates lukewarm Christians.
Kenneth Copeland, fuck that guy, but I still love him because he's a brother of Christ and he preaches the Lord's good word. Like, it was so fun. I was just like, man, to take a journey through that man's brain would be just, I don't know if you're ever coming back from that. So yeah, man.
Either that or you'd be like, oh shit, I'm already through. I already went through the whole brain. That's it.
That was quick.
All I know is from what I understand, all three of us are heathen pervert communists.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think Bryce Lee's hit one nail on the head when he was talking about MMA media. So
no,
anyway,
he's dead on. I wouldn't even deny it.
Yeah. Let me just quickly ask this as well, guys. I want to find out. We mentioned it from the top. This Nikita Krylov versus Dominic Reyes fight, right? Fascinating, because Nikita was away. People don't realize this guy's been out of action for a while. I tried to Google what was going on. You guys, along with this, like apparently he had like a bad shoulder surgery or some kind of shoulder injury. It's taken him ages to get back into the octagon. But this is kind of like a Pitbull sort of situation, right? Like, you couldn't make a better return to this 205 division than right now. Like, this thing is barren wasteland. Nothing here. Dominic Reyes, like you mentioned, Mike, potentially even fighting for his opportunity to get back to a title shot. What do you guys make of this matchup? It's kind of like two guys. It's like, back in time, back in the future.
Yeah.
Guys coming back at the exact right time to capitalize. Back in the day, you can make the argument this wouldn't be pivotal at all. These guys have a real kind of argument with a good performance to potentially fight a Carlos Ulberg or even sneak their way into some kind of title opportunity if they're ready, if Pereira refuses this Uncle Live fight. What do you think, Mike?
I like it. I think the fan base and probably the promotion, like, I know the promotion doesn't like to publicly root for people, but I got to tell you, they have to be rooting for Dominic Reyes here because this division, especially now that Pereira's lost the belt, and I guess we're going to get a rematch. This division is bad. Like, it is paper thin. It's not really all that fun to watch. Like, long gone are the days of Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz and just these bangers at 205. Like, unless Yuri Prochazka's fighting, then you're going to get something special. But like, we need something new, I guess, but old at the same time. And the amount of fans who want to see Dominic Reyes somehow get that UFC title belt after getting robbed in a lot of people's minds, being the man who beat John Jones and never getting that crowning moment. And then the weird detour his career took after that. Like, people want that comeback story with Dominic Reyes. So if he goes out there and just obliterates Nikita Krylov to kick off this big ass pay-per-view and becomes a moment that we'll remember coming out of it, he might get the Ulberg fight. Like, he could be right there, because I'm here to tell you, Carlos Ulberg, as handsome as that man is, I ain't afraid to say it, he ain't getting a title fight after that Jan Blachowicz win. That was as forgettable as it gets.
Yeah,
it was just not fun to watch at all. So Reyes winning and doing so in emphatic fashion, he's going to have a ton of fan support behind him because this division needs it badly, Chuck.
The smartest thing he's doing is kind of reintroducing John Jones name to this because I feel like that's the one. It's almost like an unresolved issue, right? Like it just kind of went on, and people kind of forgot about Dominic Reyes as he's getting knocked out, or if they were thinking about him at all, it was like, oh my God, what happened to the guy? Oh, he's done. He looked done. I mean, this is, you remember when Arlovsky back in the day, he got knocked out like 4 times in a row, and everybody was like, this guy's done. That was like 5 iterations ago. Like he came back and he went on a crazy win streak. This one's even a little nuttier because I think people were shoveling dirt on Reyes for a long time. So to even have the discussion like we're having right now is kind of nuts to me because you're like, man, this is long gone. That ship sailed. If he gets back in there, this would be a hell of a turnaround. 100% the UFC has to be interested in him kind of, I don't know, jump starting things a little bit in that division, kind of getting things rolling. He'd be the guy to do it. I think this being a big fight for him, obviously, because this now would be 3 in a row, especially if he goes in there and he's just able to do work, a first round finish or something like that. It would be a big thing for him. But the crazier one to me, man, is like Krylov. Like, how is this guy? Like, has there ever been an unsung fighter like this before? Like, where it just kind of keeps winning for years and years. He used to be Al Capone way back in the day. Now he's like the minor. Like it's like I feel like he's like 33. You would think that he's 40 just from the amount of times he's fought and everything, and he's had so many fights. Never above, like, I feel like his hype has always been right here. It's never went beyond this. So I suppose in a very strange way, this could be a moment for him. I'm not sure it would be though. Like, even if he gets the win, I don't think it's even. You know what I mean? Like, if he's able to go in there and get this victory, I don't think people are going to be like, oh, right, Krylov, this is what we needed, That poor guy, man. I always feel like he's cast in these situations where he's kind of the stepping stone or whatever it is, but he's never the guy that people are holding up to be the next guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, people are kind of confused, right? Like, just going through the comment section here, someone's like, the ship has sailed for Reyes, right? We go through Reyes' record. The guy, this is his lost record. John Jones, Jan Blachowicz, TKO. Yair knocked him out. Ryan Spann smashed him so hard that I thought that was going to be his last fight because he looked absolutely destroyed in that fight. But when you look at that run of fighters that he's had to fight before he beat Justin Jacoby and also Anthony Smith, like, you could make the argument, all right, like, he's just had a rough run of fighters back to back. And then people are saying, well, I don't really know much about Nikita, right? And that's fair enough because, like you mentioned, Chuck, this isn't a guy that's able to get out there and sort of self-promote. But people would be shocked to find out if they haven't actually looked into it. He is on a 3-fight win streak, beat Gustafsson in 2022, Volkan in 2022, and then Ryan Spann, submission triangle choke in March 11th, 2023. So it's kind of funny because us three are building these guys up. I think a UFC Countdown came out, or like all the promotion stuff's come out. I didn't see anybody being like, these guys are actually, you know what I mean? Like, no one's pushing these guys. No one's promoting these guys. Why is no one building these guys? Why are we the ones going, hey, this guy's fought these amazing guys. This guy's fought these amazing guys. These guys are relevant. Pay attention to these guys. This guy's been out for a year. Let's find out what's happened to him. Has that happened?
Because they know.
Have I missed
because
that?
Because they know how bad this division is. They're not dumb. They understand how awful this division is. And, like, we just have to kind of wait and see because but by the way, Dominic Reyes being Justin Jacoby the way he did was friggin' real impressive because not a lot of people were giving him a chance to do that. I thought Yair actually, like, I was legitimately concerned for Dominic Reyes' life after Yair spinning back elbowed him into hell at the UFC Apex. And then the Ryan Spann one on top of that was just really nasty. And yeah, dirt was shoveled on the man, but then he came back and he beat a really good striker, a guy with dangerous knockout power, a guy that on to the next one. I kept saying, like, do not book Dustin Jacoby against Dominic Reyes because I don't think my heart can take it. I don't think I could watch this man get knocked out again. And then he goes out and does it. He beats Dustin Jacoby, finishes the Glory Kickboxer. It was a beautiful thing. Now, the Anthony Smith one, it was just sad to watch because Anthony Smith had no business being in the octagon that night. Yeah. But that's not Dominic Reyes' fault. And now this man, back-to-back finishes, about to face this enigma of 205 and Nikita Krylov that a lot of the newer fans have no idea who this man is. If he goes
or the older fans
beats him, yeah, or the older fans. If he goes out there and does it again, and then, like, just makes a good call out, man is a win away from a title fight. Like,
Crazy.
it's 205. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I will say that I've interviewed Dominic Reyes before. When I interviewed him before this whole John Jones thing, he was kind of like chill. But then after the John Jones thing, I guess like too many people asked him about John Jones, and he was kind of like hesitant to do interviews, and he was a little bit like not difficult to interview, but he just kind of, his vibe was a bit off. And I hope that he can kind of reset and kind of rebuild his persona a little bit, because I saw he's been doing some recent interviews. He's been saying stuff about how people don't like him, other UFC fighters don't like him, this and that. Like, that's kind of like not the vibe that you want to build here. I think reset, and you know what I mean, Mike. You know when you, and Chuck, you know when you interview people and you're like, guys, just let it go. This is the industry. This is how it works. Just don't act like You
It could be too, like, he was asked so much about it, and it could be one of those things that mentally you're like, we're fixed on this one thing, and himself, because obviously he went through a very bad stretch after that, and you're like, hey man, I don't want to fixate on that because that didn't put me into a good place, So maybe he's like, I got to put this aside, but I do think it's good for him to keep it in his back pocket, because I think the people I've talked to, man, I don't know how you guys feel about it, and I thought in real time that Reyes won the fight. That is something you should hold forever. Like, especially when Dana White is going around saying like, this is the best pound for pound consensus GOAT, all this stuff about John Jones, and you're like, yeah, except for I beat him. I mean, I would hold that as long as he's fighting, as long as he's active. You got to keep that in your back pocket.
It's like a Rocky kind of thing. I don't know. Yeah. How long do you hold on to it for? It's like dating a hot girl in high school. Do you talk about it in your 50s?
Keep talking about it.
Yeah, man. Like when he does his
glory
days, he should be asked. He should sit down at a media scrum or a media day someday and literally just say like, answer every question with, yeah, but I beat John Jones, and just next question. Be terrific.
Yeah,
you know how that
John Jones
be amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, just call out John Jones after he beats Nikita in Miami. John Jones, you absolutely suck. I'm coming up to heavyweight. I'm telling the UFC this one's a freebie. Don't worry about paying any money to Tom Aspinall. I'm going to clean this division up myself.
And John will be like, sure. Okay, I'll fight that, man.
It's like, hey, I'm available next week. Forget the 6-month thing. I'm next week. We'll see you. Dave Sandine, who's been real supportive in the comment section for Submission Radio for a long time, goes, happy Darren, the Damage Elkins fight week, boys. What about this, man? I couldn't believe when I saw Elkins was 40 years old, man. This guy's got a baby face. If you ever have a baby face. And this guy's been in the UFC for a hell of a long time. Not many people are talking about this fight, man. But hey, stepping back in, how do we feel about this? He's taking on Julio Narosa.
Should deliver,
Not bad. A few names on this prelims, huh?
I just find Darren Elkins too. Like, dude, I don't know how. Again, like, how do these dudes keep doing this? I remember flying home from Vancouver. I forget who he fought. This was like more than a decade ago, and his face was so busted up. He was on my flight going through Chicago. His face was it was like wheezing blood, purple. I'm like, how the hell are you doing this? And now we're like at least 12, 13 years later. And he's still doing it, man, at 40 years old.
Understand
these guys, man, that's just madness.
How do I look like I'm 60 and I haven't taken that much damage to my face? And this guy's had his face beaten a number of times. Looks like he's 25 years old.
He's had his face rearranged many times. When people get work, he gets his face rearranged. That's how it works.
Botox, get in the UFC octagon. Yeah. Maybe that's what people need to do. Obviously, we got Dan Ige on the card as well versus Sean Woodson. We got a pivotal fight, like mentioned before, with Jan Hinan versus Verena Jandiroba. Mike, how do I pronounce this name?
Jandiroba.
Jandiroba. That's a pivotal fight for that division. That could see a person potentially fighting for the title. But Chuck, I want to quickly get your thoughts on this, man. Jim Miller, right? He's fighting Chase Hooper. What do you think at the end of the day, once Jim Miller hangs up those gloves? What is his legacy?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, he would be the Iron Man for sure. Like I had to look this up because he's at 41. I think he's 41 years old, and Chase Hooper's like 25. Yeah. In 2005, when he made his pro debut, Chase was 6 years old. That's just so weird. Like to even contemplate stuff like that.
And if he would have known about it like Terminator style, he could have gone back in time and beat up Chase when he was 6, taking him out of the running to be on the start.
Would have done the world a favor if he just picked him up. But I think it's, again, man, it's an unsung kind of thing because Jim Miller has never held a belt. In fact, I don't think he's ever even fought for a belt, right? Like the times he's got close. I remember the Nate Diaz, when he fought Nate Diaz, I think in New Jersey, was very, very close. but he didn't win that fight. And if you go down just his career, it's just he still fought a who's who, man. He's had to fight guy. It's the most thankless thing that he's had to do just from the time he's been in the UFC till now. And I think it's 46th time he's making the walk. He's going to shatter records in ways that I don't think people can catch him, because I just don't think they're built that way. I don't think the UFC is built that way to house guys for that many fights anymore. I think his records are going to stand the test of time, man. As long as we're around, I think he'll still have records in the UFC. So his legacy is just going to be that, an Iron Man, a throwback to something that you won't see going forward. And it won't have anything to do with like the glory of having won belts or anything like this. It'd be some kind of definition of what a fighter would be, right? Like you'd look at him as kind of being the kind of, personification of what a fighter means,
Mike, what do you think? It's interesting as well because he's kind of like, I think this is a great card. Could we use him at like UFC 105 at the Apex or something? You know what I'm saying? Like, could we use him at one of these cards where there's like nothing happening on the card? Like, could we use him to kick off a main card or the ESPN?
He's done that though.
Yeah,
so many times.
So many times he fights like. I went to Lad. I always point this out. I went to Lad Dumont like a few years ago at the Apex, which is one of the worst. You would think it was one of the worst cards, but there's been some bad ones.
Did you fly there for that, or
no? I just happened to be in Vegas for it, and got tickets. So I was like, I went. It was the first time I'd ever been to the Apex. Reason I bring it up is because Jim Miller was on the prelims. Like I forget who he was fighting now, but he was on the prelims of that, and I was like, man, that's crazy. Poor Jim Miller, fighting on the prelims of this. Afternoon Vegas card nobody's paying attention to. And yet here he is, man. So he's done all of it. Even that stuff, the most thankless stuff possible, he just keeps persevering through.
Are we looking at Conor McGregor's next opponent, Mike Heck? Yeah. Chael Sonnen said there's no one in the UFC that Conor could beat Jim Miller versus Conor McGregor, International Fight Week.
I lobbied for Jim Miller versus Tony Ferguson for like ever. Yeah. Like when Ferguson was on the downside, like why are you throwing Tony in there with like Michael Chandler and Paddy Pimblett? Like chuck him in there with Jimmy Mills. Like what are we doing here? Throw him in there with Joe Law. Like these are the guys Tony should be fighting. Now he's gonna potentially fight Dylan Dennis in another organization. But yeah, I mean Iron Man, he's the Cal Ripken of the UFC. Yeah. Even like Cal Ripken is a Hall of Famer and he broke the record for most consecutive games, but he wasn't like a great baseball player. He was a very good major leaguer, like surefire, never did anything fancy with the glove or with the bat. He had many miserable batting average years, but the dude showed up. Sometimes he went 0 for 7. Sometimes he went 4 for 4, 3 home runs. That's who Jim Miller is.
Never backed out of a fight, as far as I know. The only time it had something to do with the pandemic. Do you remember this? Like there was something going on and he was forced off or something like that. But out of all of those, he's never just willingly or whatever for injury backed out. And this is through Lyme disease and all these things that
that's the crazy thing, isn't it?
Yeah, man. He's never backed out of a fight. It's crazy.
All right, guys. Well, before we wrap up, just another one from Alan W. And we spoke about this at the start with the current UFC trends, business dealings, a 5-year MMA fan cycle. The sport of MMA has the sport of MMA peaked? Do you expect a new decline normalcy in the popularity in the future? I just got to say, I'm curious to see what happens after this card, as we discussed at the start. Curious to see what happens with the TV deal. I know you guys have spoken about it a million times already, but if they go to Netflix, what does that look like? Will there even be pay-per-view in the future? And will there be less cards if they don't have to be on ESPN? How would it impact it if Netflix owns all the rights to all the media? Would it make it better or worse if there's no media? I don't know. Probably worse if there's no media for us. But outside of that, I think it'll be interesting to see. I don't know what the future holds, right, fellas? I don't know what the future of MMA holds, right?
This all depends on what Dana White does in the next 5 years. Is he, because I know people look at it and not obviously exactly like Vince McMahon, Dana White will leave the UFC when he dies. That's what they thought about Vincent when all these, heinous shit, when all that heinous shit came out about him. But now Dana's got his hand in so many different things. You could tell he loves Power Slap more than he loves the UFC. Now he's doing the boxing thing. He's been wanting to do the boxing thing. It's an itch he's been trying to scratch forever. And now he's already, you already see the things with combat law and things they're trying to do with the Ali Act and all that stuff. Dana is gonna be so immersed into this world of boxing and the Power Slap world. is he going to have to step away from the day-to-day, be the face of the UFC? And honestly, I am super curious of what that world looks like if he does step away, because I've been arguing for a while that it does not change a damn thing when it comes to the UFC in terms of how they run their business. Dana is obviously a focal piece of bringing in sponsors. He has great relationships with very powerful people, and he can still be used for those types of situations. But in terms of him being on camera and him being, hey, if you don't know, now you know, this is the co-main event for this card. Like, obviously we know that fight's going to be good. You tell us, like, we already know this already, but you don't need any of that. John Anik hosts 95% of the press conferences now anyways. Like, you could just bring in a different face of the company, and then will that bring some of the hardcore fans back that have been turned off by this oversaturation, this watered down product right now? What is this TV deal going to look like, Chuck? Is this going to be, are we still going to trot out 43 cards plus contender series, plus the Ultimate Fighter, plus looking for a fight, plus all these other things they're trying to do? Or are we going to take the shitty Apex cards, chuck them on a Wednesday night instead of a Saturday, or are we just going to go back to the Fox days where, yeah, they still did a lot of cards and it never felt like we had an off season, but 36 sounds way better than 42 or 43, does it not?
100%, man. And I guess that is where I'm at on it too. Like, there's a point in time when, like, we've talked about the inundation going back even before there was an ESPN deal. Like, we were talking about this card being sort of like oversat, like just kind of getting, there's too much to follow. The barrier of entry is more difficult, all that sort of thing. I don't know how that looks. I hope that it can be toned down a little bit, but going back to your other point real quick, like, Dana White is one of those guys who thrives on the defiance of people saying, like, you can't, it will never happen. Yes, it can. We will, that's his whole thing. So when people right now, like, you can see that old vital thing that's in Dana White, when people talk about power slap, like, nobody cares, man, this is barbaric, whatever it is. And he's like, yes, they do. This is the best. This is him in his finest, is when he's like that, right? Like, this is what he did with the UFC. He's already won the UFC. He's already won it. So what that means, I don't know. I don't know what it means, because we've never had to see him sort of maintain now the business as it becomes like multi-billion-dollar enterprise that has all this leverage and has been accepted. His thing, his vital thing, was getting it there. So it's always going to be like one of those things like, okay, what does that mean? I don't know. Does he just kind of go, is boxing going to be the thing now? Is it going to be like, okay, I need to restructure the boxing world to fit the way I want it to be, and that becomes his thing? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. I guess if for the combat world at large, that becomes the question. It's not just MMA. I think it's just, how is all this going to look in 5 years? It could be drastically different than what we're dealing with right now.
It's fascinating times right now. And a quick thank you to Dylan Brewer as well for dropping a super chat. I just got to say that I think that this whole boxing thing, we'll talk about it later when they announce it and I get you guys back on, but if you guys ever choose to return after this. But man,
one and done, baby. No, I'm just kidding.
One and done. No, two and done. Two and done.
That's true. That's
two.
True.
Two. I got to say, this boxing model that he said about, like, we'll get them all cheap and then they'll fight the best of the best. And then it just goes back to the conversation that Kamaru Usman had with Terence Crawford, where it was like, UFC guys get paid better than boxing guys. And he's like, when we're on TV and we're fighting anywhere near the title, we're like making $1 million, buddy. So 12 and 12 isn't going to cut it for us. So 20 or 20 or whatever. Like, it's people just have no idea that it's a really different.
So naive.
World. And it should be. And it should be like that. All right, guys, as we wrap up, Mike, big stuff happening. Obviously, UFC 314 Fight Week. You got the watch-along happening, the post-fight show, the pre-fight show. And, of course, I get to join you as well this week. Break it down for all the people. A fun week over at MMA Fighting as usual.
Yes, I made my debut here. Dennis going to make his debut on BTL tomorrow, going up against the probably hungover Jed Meshew after...
And it'll be 2:30 in the morning over here.
Oh, dude. Get after it. That's what we like to see. But yeah, a lot of 314 stuff. We'll talk about Aaron Pico signing with the UFC, which is obviously a very big deal. And who knows what the next 12 or 14 hours or so will bring. So 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. It'll be fun. It'll be vibrant. Jed will have hot takes. You will probably hate them. Dennis will have a good time. And yeah, then we got weigh-ins and preview shows and watch parties, and it's just gonna be a fun week. And then the good news is no UFC next weekend. We get a week off to digest it all. It's a beautiful thing.
Woo! Nah, it's going to be awesome. And shout out to all the boys that are at MMA Fighting Man. Jose Young's out there doing this thing. Alex Decay and all the boys. What about you, Chuck? Of course, we've got the and Casey as well. What about you, Chuck? We've got great articles coming. What do you have planned coming up? UFC 314.
On Friday, I will be doing the crack without Pete Carroll because I think he's out. So I think it's just me and Ben Folks doing the crack on Friday, which is
that weird though? Do you guys change the name a little bit? What's
I don't know what's going on. We just spell crack differently at that point, right? We just spell traditional way. And then
look at our track box.
and then this week is special. Not to go head to head with you, Mike, but I think that we're rolling back. We used to do the Ringer MMA show, and I think that we're putting that lineup back together for the UFC 314. I'm not sure if I should be talking about this. I don't know if this is common.
No. Come on, no one's watching.
Yeah. But we're getting the 3POC gang back together for that one, so that'd be fun. I haven't done since the last time we talked. That was the last time I did a post-fight show, so it's been a little while.
Yeah, I got you back into the motion. That's great. And of course, for everybody out there, you can open all the streams at the same time. Or what I like to do as well is if I can't watch it live, because I do a show around that time as well, watch it a little bit later. But a lot of great content. So much great content in the MMA world to celebrate. Of course, Luke Thomas as well with a live watch along too. So make sure you check that out. Mike Heck, thank you so much for making your big debut. What do you think? Did it disappoint?
Slightly, but I still had a good time.
Great.
Just kidding. Nah,
the greatest thing about Mike is he tells the truth.
You sound like a girlfriend I had in university about 10 years ago. I'll take that endorsement and I will add it to hers. Chuck, will you return? Again.
Yeah.
Okay. And Mike will return because I'm gonna talk him into it. All
yeah,
right,
I was
guys.
Gonna say, I didn't get asked if I can return, but
because I know you're coming back.
Thank you, Chuck. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. After that review, I know you're coming back, guys. Thank you so much for joining in. Of course, check out the boys, MMA Fighting, and of course, Chuck across all the big outlets. And we'll see you guys after UFC 314. Submission Radio out. Thank you so much.